everybody, good evening. Welcome to TGP Series. It's TGP1, and you join us from the streets of Singapore for what is going to turn out to be, I'm sure, another fantastic race in the TGP1 season. What a great season we've had so far, and I'm sure we're going to have two more classic races for you tonight. We're going to run through the introduction very quickly because we've got a lot to report to you already in the first 12 minutes of qualifying that we have had. I'm joined, as ever, in the commentary box with Softy. Softy, good evening. Hello, how are you? And what are you looking forward to tonight?
Oh, I'm just looking forward to the title fight and potential rain at the start of the race as well. So it should be interesting to see John go fastest.
Yeah, so we've had an interesting qualifying session so far. To give you a bit of a rundown of what's been going on, we started off with rain. So we had a rain-affected qualifying right at the beginning, but now it's drying up. The rain has stopped. Most of the drivers are now out on the soft tyres, hence why we've just seen John go 6 seconds quicker than anybody else. Who have we got out on a fast lap at the moment on the soft? We've got Court, who's about to start a lap. Aidan Griffins is on a lap at the moment. Let's watch him then. Through the final couple of corners, this is certainly going to be an improvement for the Alfa Romeo driver, and he goes provisional pole of 38.1. But Softy, those times are going to start tumbling down over the next few minutes.
They are, yeah. I'd probably say, if it was completely dry the entire session, I'd say a low 36 would be the pole time. I don't think we're quite going to get there with the track not being at its optimal.
Yeah, we've got Phil Bargewell, who's just about to end his outlap. Court Gill. Oh, Dan the Man has just gone fastest. There you go, then. The man who can still win the title. Very unlikely. He's now going to be rushing back to the pits, I'm sure, to put a new set of softs on and get back out onto the track. Surely, Softy, this session is going to be just about who's last over the line.
Absolutely. Again, we saw it a few seasons ago at Japan, where Dan beat me to the line by a quarter of a tenth due to him being the last over it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the times are still going to come down quite a lot. I'd say again a 37.6 at the minute. We've still got quite a few drivers, such as the Confessor, still to do a lap time on those soft tyres. But Dan the Man is doing everything he can at the moment to keep his championship alive.
Yeah, well, on the subject of the championship, then let's give you a quick rundown of what needs to happen. So, the Confessor can win the title tonight as long as he's got a 156-point gap by the end of this evening. So, what does that mean in real terms? Dan the Man needs to finish in the top two in this race. And, well, let's put it another way. So, if Shane wins tonight, and Dan, the first race in Singapore, and Dan the Man is second, then Shane can still win the title in the second race tonight in Monza. So that is, to a certain degree, potentially just how easy it could be for the Confessor to come away with the title tonight. It's not a guaranteed. It's probably on the sort of the more unlikely side than it is likely. Having said that, we know just how dominant the Confessor has been so far this season. And Softy, I really wouldn't put it past him coming away with the title tonight.
No, exactly. I wouldn't, to be honest. I mean, I've actually said it. I think he'll probably win it tonight. Jack Hickey, I think third in the standings, is not here tonight, unfortunately. So obviously it all rests on Dan the Man, or Dan the Them, as we like to call him these days. But in terms of that, yeah, I mean, it's going to be very difficult for Dan to win the title. It's just a case of, I think, really just delaying it until probably next week, realistically. But it is Singapore. Anything can happen, and I don't think the Confessor had a particularly amazing race round here last season, and it looks like he's only going to go for one run at the very end. He's currently in P11.
Yeah, well, we shall see. We've got Magic Poop Cannon circling around the track at the moment, who's going purple through the first two sectors. Not really a surprise there. As we said, the track is only going to get quicker as we ramp up. Let's not forget that the Confessor, if he does win the title tonight, then this will be the earliest it's ever been won in any TGP league. Even if he wins it next week, Softy, it still could end up being one of the earliest title clinchers we have seen. How much of an impressive a job has the Confessor done this season as he's now starting his outlap?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been perfect, pretty much. Obviously, he's only not won two races, and that was Netherlands and I think Bahrain last week. So he's had an absolutely extraordinary season. He is very quick. I think we saw that in his first season that he did when he won the title as well. There, I think, again, not to take anything away from him, but it has helped that no one's really playing the game nearly as much now with the second season. I don't think people tend to enjoy this game that much, but even so, you can only race against what's put in front of you, and he's beat everyone quite comfortably this season. So fair play to him.
So we've got a minute and a half left. So interestingly, Matt Tibos is on a lap at the moment. Dan Morris isn't just yet, but I think actually he could end up being last across the line. He'd have to do 2 push laps in a row, but Matt Tibos could be in a position where he is last over the line. I think he could be, So let's watch Matt, because he's actually going to be the first one of these runners who's going to set a lap to begin with. The Confessor is just coming towards the final corner now, so we will cut to him. He's about half a lap behind Matt, so we'll be able to cut to him for the sort of second part of the lap. Softy, perhaps keep an eye on how the Confessor's going. Meanwhile, We're watching the Alpine of Matt Tibos. Had a good week last week, Matt Tibos. Found a bit of form. And he's finding form at the moment. Look at this. Purple through Sector 2. This is what we're expecting to see. We're expecting to see the track get quicker as the cars go round. More rubber goes down. Less water's on the track. And the speeds will increase. Under the lights in Singapore, we could be in for a fascinating final minute of this qualifying session. Don't go anywhere, as we're going to see the times tumble over the next 30 seconds. There's one. Cam on provisional pole at the moment. A 1 minute 36.8. 0.8 of a second quicker than the next best car. Matt Tibos around the final corner now. He goes into P2 at 37.2. And we have got cars behind Matt. I should have taken those into account, really, that are going to be last across the line. But Softy, how's the Confessor getting on?
His times aren't actually showing, his sector times, but it seems to be quite steady. He's not sort of pushing too hard, but in the end, he's down in P11. I think, you don't need to, especially when it's changeable track conditions. Just keep it neat and tidy, and you're gonna do well. He's 8 seconds up on his lap time at the minute, so that's only a 1 minute 40 potentially, if my terrible maths is correct. But yeah, he's going to improve quite a lot in this final sector as well. He's keeping it nice and tidy there. You just want to keep it tidy, a bit wide there, but again, it's not going to cost him too much time. Again, he's doing this lap later than the drivers who are at the top of the grid at the minute, but we'll see how he does as Dan Morris goes 10th and it doesn't improve there. But I reckon this probably should be provisional pole, and it is.
And it is, but look at that, it's only by 7 thousandths of a second. Dan to them is on a flying lap at the moment. He's in the middle of Sector 2, so we'll see how he gets on. Let's give a shout out as well for Jack Pearson, 30th birthday tonight. Let's hope Jack does well. John puts himself into P4. Cam has retired. Cam has crashed. He's not going any quicker. Let's keep an eye on the other drivers. Dan is coming down the Anderson Bridge at the moment. He's only finding 2 tenths though, Softy. That's not enough.
It's not nowhere near enough. Obviously, very cautious here. Realistically, he should be gaining time, but you'd hope he's gaining more time in this final sector. But it's going to be a tough challenge depending on how much time he gains. But he does need to keep it nice and tidy. He is currently P6 at the minute, and he needs to be P2.
Yeah, Court goes P4, so his teammate has put it up into the top 4. We have got times coming in, but at the moment, not really challenging the top 2, who are in a league of their own. Down to them then, round the final corner. Are we going to see an improvement? He's into 3rd. Well, it's not about it. We've got a AlphaTauri spinning in the background. That's Magic Poop Cannon. He would have been the last person to cross the line. He still hasn't yet crossed the line. He's about to. And there we go. So, it was an unusual qualifying. But Softy, a similar result.
Yeah, well,
Cam's gone.
Expected. Yeah, Cam has disconnected, so that's not good for himself there. Currently in P2, so hopefully he does get in for the start. I don't know whether he will though or not, depending on how the game does work. But yeah, the Confessor, yet another pole. I'd say comfortable over Dan in 3rd, but I wouldn't really expect anything different.
Yeah, well, let's give you a rundown then of our grid. So we've got the Confessor in a usual pole position with New Zealand Cam, the only person who got close to him on the track currently, not even in the lobby. So we'll hope to see him back very shortly. Down to them, it's in P3 with Matt Tibos P4. Matt Tibos finally finding a bit of form. Court Gill in the other Ferraris P5 with Jean in P6. Aidan Griffiths is 7th with Speed Kai in 8th. Phil Bardwell is 9th with Viva Lamerco in 10th. ERT Jordan 11th. Mr. Chiapelli 12th. Alistair Bain is 13th, Magic Poop Cannon 14th with that spin over the line. Dom Smith is 15th, Jack Pearson, the birthday boy, is 16th, with Dan Morris in P17. So, Softy, we haven't mentioned it yet, but there is a slim chance that we could even see some rain in this race towards the beginning of the race. It's not a given. I would just like to caveat that, but How different do you think that will make the driver's approach in the first couple of laps? I mean, this street circuit's hard enough as it is, let alone with a bit of rain sprinkled in.
Yeah, I think we've had it a few times where it's rained in TG1. But yeah, I mean, it will be very interesting if it is wet at the start, and it'll be interesting to see if the game decides to put everyone on dry tyres, which is it can sometimes do. But I think if it's dry at the start, then obviously I think that's the only chance of rain there is at the very start. The best strategy will be medium to soft, because the softs run out after about 2 or 3 laps. But yeah, and is it going to be dry? It looks to be dry.
It looks pretty dry to me.
Yeah, also Singapore can be a bit deceiving there. But yeah, I think that the best strategy then in this case is start on the mediums. You know, if you start on the softs, you're going to pit on lap 2 or 3, and you know, you're not really going to gain too much. So I'd be very surprised if the front runners do not start on mediums.
Well, we haven't got very long until the start of this race, and an evening where we could have our earliest ever TGP1 champion in terms of races remaining. And what a big night this could be. He's in the place where he can. The Confessor's in a place where he could be to make that happen. So it's in his hands. So we've got lights on the grid. We've got a car missing. We've got 5 lights. And we're underway in Singapore, and it's a good start from Cam, whose AI has gone straight into the lead.
And Dan as well.
Fantastic start. And Dan the man's getting up the inside of the Confessor, and they're getting contact, but the Confessor is forced off the road. Dan the man keeps his front wing by the looks of it intact, and for the moment at least, stays within touching distance of his rival. Court's putting pressure on Matt Tibos, with Court up the inside then, into turn number 4. He looked like he ran a little bit wide, and he had to concede the place in the end. A little bit further back, we've got Jean-Luc Taylor, who's all over the back of Aidan Griffiths, but it's Aidan who's looking now to try and make a move on Court. Court goes defensive, and at the end of the main straight, Aidan's going to hang it round the outside, and that opens the door for Jean. Jean's on the left-hand side, he's on the outside. Court outbreaks himself, and he's spinning round, and he's collected Aidan with him. Disaster for the two of them, who drop all the way to the back of the pack, and that came, I think, because Court outbraked himself a little bit and almost hit Matt Tibos. But we've got the Confessor, Dan the man, and Matt Tibos, your top 3.
Yeah, very good start from Dan the Man and the Confessor there. I'd probably say Dan the Man realistically was up the inside of the Confessor into turn 1, and the Confessor sort of decided to, I'd say, straight line the corner there. But the Confessor's actually on the hard tyres, whereas Dan is on those mediums. So you'd think Dan would have probably the pace advantage at the minute. But to be honest, I don't think the Confessor's probably too worried, and he can probably go onto the medium tyres whenever he feels like it, really. So whereas Dan will have to use those soft tyres obviously a lot later in the race. So it'll be interesting to see where this strategy finishes, but I'd say the Confessor probably has a slight advantage at the minute, and he seems to have that pace ever so slightly.
Yeah, well, these 3 are breaking away from the pack. 2 seconds advantage over the next car, which is Jean. Phil Bardwell, something's happened to Phil. He's actually into the pits, so something must have happened to the Mercedes driver, maybe getting caught up in that Aidan and Court incident. Meanwhile, further back, look at that. We got Kai up the inside of Alistair into turn 1, taking 7th place. Good start there for Kai, it must be said. And Chiapelli's up into 5th. He's had a good start as well. Softy, all sorts of movers in this pack so far.
Yeah, you've got, obviously it's good. I think the chaos of lap 1 obviously allowed people like Mr. Chiapelli, obviously Viva La Mirko to gain, really. So that's good. But actually we can see Court and Dom Smith going at it a bit further down in P9. But it's unfortunate for Court having that spin. I think he was just a bit unsighted as well with the ghost car of New Zealand Cam. But yeah, unfortunate for Court there.
Yep, it is a shame. Phil Bardwell has come out the pits right with Aidan Griffin, so the two of them having stopped already. New Zealand Cam hasn't been able to rejoin the pack just yet, which is a shame for him. We could have been left with an even spicier race at the front if he'd been involved in this. But the race petering out a little bit now, settling into a rhythm. We've got drivers on different strategies. And Dan the man is going to want to try and clear the Confessor as soon as that DRS is enabled, you would have thought, Softy, to make the most of that softer tyre.
He needs to, yeah. I mean, this is the thing. So with the Confessor being on those hards, realistically, he could pit lap 7 or 8 if he wanted to go onto the mediums. Whereas Dan the man, realistically, is going to have to pit lap sort of 12 or 13 in order to make those softs last until the end. So I think the Confessor's actually done his homework. I know he did a bit of practice at his Goes Fastest lap, a bit of practice yesterday, at least in time trial from what I saw a bit earlier on. So he has prepared for this, as DRS is now enabled there. But yeah, Dan the Man is sort of stuck on his strategy with pitting a few laps to go, whereas the Confessor can sort of pit a bit earlier if he wanted to, and probably will have better tyre life, you know, no matter what tyre he goes on at that stage. So yeah, Dan needs to get past him soon and pull away. But Dan's on 33% ERS, while the Confessor's on 64%. So Dan is really pushing, but you know, he needs to get through soon and then potentially save some of his ERS.
Yeah, I think he was using some on that main straight there. He had DRS open, and it looked like the battery was being used. Clearly, Dan knows that this is his opportunity, or one of his better opportunities, to get past the Confessor and go ahead and win this race. But look at them, they're almost nose to tail as we head over the beautiful old bridge. The former Singapore Sling not slowing the cars down as much as they used to, but Dan's right in the gearbox of the Confessor, going down towards the end of the back straight. He's looking to the outside. The Confessor has had to go defensive. Is Dan going to get the switch back? Now on the run down to what the corner's going to change next year, but the Confessor covers that one off, and for the moment at least, it's still McLaren-Ferrari rather than Ferrari-McLaren.
Yeah, the Confessor, obviously, we have known him, obviously, I think the two races so far that he's not won. He did get put under pressure and he made mistakes. So this is what Dan needs to do. Whether Dan, you know, thinks he can win this race or not, I think it is a tall ask at the minute. But you know, as long as Dan puts pressure on the Confessor, you know, there's every opportunity that the Confessor will make a mistake, and you know, it might be a bit easier for Dan as he sets the fastest lap.
Yeah, Dan's really pushing for this. He knows he's got to make this happen. He knows he's got an opportunity, and if he's going to deny the Confessor taking what will be a record in terms of the earliest TGP1 Championship win, he's got to make his mark now. He knows what he's got to do, but he's got to put it into action now. He's run a little bit deep there, and that's not going to help him, Softy, in his pursuit of first place.
He's not, no, and Dan then using all of his ERS, so I think he will try and go up the inside if the Confessor doesn't go defensive. I think he's going to dive it. No, he's thinking about it, but he thinks better of it there. But, you know, every opportunity that he uses his ERS, that he deploys it, is another opportunity missed, and he's now below 10%, while the Confessor's on 46. So, you know, the Confessor's taking his normal racing line, using his ERS to defend on those straights, which is the only real places to overtake around here. And as long as he's, you know, neat and tidy, it's still going to be very difficult for Dan to overtake him.
Yeah, he's still right where he needs to. And Matt Tibos, credit to him, is sticking with these two. So he's not out of this one yet. If there is tears with the front two, there still could be an opportunity for Matt Tibos in this race. Further back, we've got cars very close to each other as well. Viva La Merco is putting pressure under Mr. Chiapelli. So the Red Bull behind the AlphaTauri. And we are not seeing any moves just yet. Mr. Chiapelli, interestingly, Softy, is on the soft tyres. So that's probably why we're seeing the AlphaTauri driver struggling a little bit right about now.
Yeah. I reckon he'll probably pit this lap because he's the only one currently on those softs other than Jack Pearson. So, yeah, I think he's probably pushed those tyres a bit too much, and I'll be surprised if he doesn't pit this lap.
Oh, we've got a spinner! Kai's round!
Last one.
Nope, while one Alpine is enjoying third place, the other one is sent spinning round, and surely I would have thought we'll see Kai come into the pits as he's so close to the end of the lap. No, he stays out, interestingly, but Jack Pearson does pit.
Yeah, Court and Alistair going at it at the minute. Court in P8, you know, both on the medium tyres, so both, well, I say Alistair's got 90% ERS, so a bit more ERS there, but Court's really wanting this position, so I think he'll probably get it. You know, Alistair's not actually using any of his ERS to even bother defending there, so an unusual one for Alistair, but Court is now up to P7.
Yep, nice clean overtake there from Court on a recovery mission after his lap one spin. We nearly did the same thing again there. The Ferrari driver living life on the edge, and Alistair Vane not being dropped from this yet. But interestingly, Softy looking back at the front, Dan the Man still within touching distance of the Confessor, but touching distance isn't close enough.
It's not, no, and this is the thing with Singapore, because everyone's running pretty much near max wing level. It's very hard to make an impression on those straights. So all you need to do is ensure you get good exits onto those straights, use your ERS to defend, and the car behind realistically is not really going to do too much damage with that. But yeah, I think the Confessor knew this by going on those hard tyres. That he just needs to keep it nice and tidy. But again, if I was Dan the Man, I'd be on that blower at the end of this race, reporting the Confessor for that turn 1 sort of corner cut, because Dan was up on the inside, cars, he was alongside him quite comfortably, and the Confessor sort of went over the white line. So
do you think there was enough in that, really, though?
I mean, it's always easy to say from the outside that this is a penalty and stuff, but I think if the title was on the line and sort of keeping it to another week potentially, Dan the Man's not really got anything to lose, to be honest, just trying it. So he may as well try something, and it may end up giving him the race win potentially if the Confessor is found to have gained an advantage.
Yeah, well, Dan the Man, meanwhile, just 3 tenths still behind the Confessor. Further back, Viva La Merco.
Aidan Griffin's spun.
Still 3 tenths behind. Aidan Griffins has had a spin. He's languishing down now in 17th place. So not the sort of night he would have wanted in the Alfa Romeo. Viva La Merco and Mr. Chiapelli still going out. Mr. Chiapelli making those soft tyres last a long time. He's clearly intent on moving to the medium tyres, which does look like a good race tyre at the moment, Softy.
No, it is, absolutely. I'd say probably that's it's got a good amount of grip in comparison to its life as well. But I mean, I say that, but the Confessor's the one that's leading, and he's on hard tyres. So but I think he can. The Confessor, unlike most, can get away with that with his pace advantage. But and Dan hitting the wall there. So Dan hopefully has not got damage there, sort of skimming the tyre barrier. But he'll be very lucky not to get damage. But he needs to be careful, because Matt Tibos is within 4 tenths of him at the minute.
Could we see Matt try and undercut in a minute? Would that be a wise decision for Matt to do? Or is he going to play the long game here? They've got 4.3 seconds advantage over, as Aidan's now out of the race. They've got 4.3 seconds advantage over the next car. Does that present that sort of opportunity, do you think?
Yes and no. I think Matt Tibos could try and pit a lap earlier and get that undercut on Dan the Man. But he needs to be very careful of, if he pits too early, by the end of the race his tyres are going to be cooked and worn out, so then Dan probably will get him back. So I think I would say, can he try it? Yes. I mean, in the end, worst case he's probably going to finish P3 because he's got 4 seconds over Jean in P4. Best case scenario, he probably jumps Dan and maybe is able to fight the Confessor, but I think with the medium to soft tyres in comparison to the Confessor, they're sort of locked in on when they can really pit because of how little the soft tyre ends up lasting.
Well, Dan is now a second outside of the Confessor, so he's lost that DRS benefit. So Matt Tibos could be licking his lips in a minute. This is one of the closest battles on track we got at the moment, with pit stops starting to come into play. Mr. Chiapelli did pit in the end, so that's promoted Merco up into P5. These three... best part, 4.5 seconds ahead of 4th place. So at the moment, you are looking at what would be quite a safe bet for a podium, but you can never say anything is certain in Singapore. We all know how unpredictable it can be. These streets are not very forgiving, and it'll be interesting to see when we see some of the front runners start to peel off into the pits. For the moment, at least, the top 3 all staying out. Matt Tibos then, just 4.5 tenths behind Dan the Man. And Dan the Man, now, as we said, without DRS, is losing traction, losing ground to the Confessor. Might have to think about pulling the plug in a minute. The Confessor, obviously... the Confessor made a mistake there. Something's happened to the Confessor, because Dan the Man is now right with him. This is Dan's opportunity, Softy. He's got to go for it.
I think he may have disconnected the Confessor, or he's got some sort of issue, because he's lost so much time there.
Oh, and he's coming back. The 3 of them are almost 3 wide at the end of the main straight. And Matt Tibos is going to go past them both. Matt Tibos has gone from 3rd place to the lead of the race in just 1 corner. It came from out of nowhere. Something's happened to the Confessor. His pace has dropped off a cliff. And that's presented a beautiful opportunity for Matt Tibos to move into the lead of the race, with Dan the Man staying in 2nd place with his main championship rival now down in 3rd.
Yeah, I don't know, because I know a few days ago the Confessor did have issues with stick drift. So I don't know if that's something that's affecting him. I don't know whether his controller's broke or something, because he's got no pace at the moment. It looks like it's the AI driving, so potentially he may have pad issues, which is meaning that Dan the Man is gaining points. But at the minute, it's Matt Tibos in the lead, and the Confessor's probably going to get overtaken by Jean in a minute if he's not careful.
He's lost so much time on this lap, Softy. As you said, Jean is just half a second behind now all of a sudden.
I think the AI has taken control of his car, because we use 40 difficulty, and at the minute even Jean is now all of a sudden able to attack. So I do think that the
Dan's
AI
in the
has
pits.
taken control. And so is the Confessor. The Confessor's in the pits on lap 9 then. So this is working out beautifully for Dan the Man, and he might actually undercut Matt Tibos with that as well. But I would probably say Dan the Man pitting on lap 9 of 15. His tyres are going to be screaming at the end of that race.
Well, this race, I mean, the Singapore has got one of the most turns in
as well. And he stopped. He's not going. The Confessor. Oh, there we go. He's finally going, but that's going to cost the Confessor even more time. But yeah, the Confessor's gone on softs as well, so he didn't go onto the medium tyres as I thought he would. But yeah, he's down in P8 at the minute, so disaster for the Confessor. And let's see. Actually, I think by the looks of it, it's very ginger. So I still think the AI are taking control of it. So yeah, it's a disaster, and I think he may drop out of the points if he's not kicked, if he doesn't do something soon.
I'm wondering if he's changed controller. You're right, that was a very long stop, and I'm wondering if perhaps we saw, to coin the phrase, 5 wheels being changed there, and the Confessor has come out of the pits, and he's got a bit of pace. The gap to court staying about 1.2 seconds. It's in the corners.
He's still AI. By the looks of it, he's braking super early for all of his corners.
I don't think it's AI, Softy. I think it's just his controller.
It is AI. Yeah,
I think it's his controller. I think he's just taking it really easy.
There's something, but it's the fact that how slow he is. Like, even if you've got a controller issue, you'd sort of expect to still be going quicker than this. I mean, yeah, it's Singapore, but even so, and even like Court and Jack Pearson are going quicker than him. So there's something. I remember, what was it, Monaco in season 23. My L2 spring broke because see Matt Tibos in the pits, and I still finished second in that race. And here we go is Court, and nearly a bit of contact there with the Confessor.
Yeah, well, this race has turned on its head. The McLaren driver struggling as Court now hits the back of the McLaren. He doesn't need to do that. He's got so much of pace advantage. And look here, he's going up the inside underneath the grandstand, and he forces the Confessor out, and that's going to put birthday boy Jack Pearson with an opportunity around the outside.
Matt front, Matt Tibos and Dan the Man jumped Matt Tibos just, so Matt Tibos has lost that lead in those pit stops. But it's going to be interesting now. That's what Dan needed to do.
Yeah, well, as you said, we got a change for the net lead of the race. So Matt Tibos then, within a second of Dan the Man, so we saw him pull off what was a spectacular overtake just before the pit stops to get past not only Dan the Man, but the Confessor as well, as the Confessor's issues started coming into play. But Matt Tibos, he's been out of form all season. He's been out of form for the last 2 seasons. He had a breakthrough week last week, and now suddenly could be staring down the barrel at a win of the race, as could Dan the Man, who's only had 1 win so far this season, and could be suddenly looking at a second. This does have an ear of Mercedes 2014 about it, where it seems like the Confessor's going to win unless he has a problem.
Absolutely. I think, it's unusual. He's now down to 11th place as the Confessor, so a few more places and he's going to get no points, which is going to be fantastic for the championship, probably go into the next race tonight at Monza, or even possibly next week. But yeah, Dan the Man doing all he can at the minute, and he's not put a foot wrong so far. But yeah, Matt Tibos has always done well round here, so I think Matt Tibos will be favouring himself to get this win. They've both got the same amount of hours, so only 4.5 laps to go.
Yep, Court's on the attack again. This time is Mr. Chiapelli uses prey, but he got a little bit too excited on the loud pedal there, Court, and he missed his opportunity on the switchback. Viva Lamerco has come into the pits now, as has Don Morris, as has Speed Kai. So the top 3 on the road are coming to the pits. But look at this, Softy. Look at Matt Tibos. He's all over the back of Dan the Man. He's almost breathing his exhaust fumes.
Exactly, and the benefit with being the car behind, you can save ERS and get the benefit of the slipstream of DRS. So you go faster down the straights, you regen more ERS more quickly, so you end up having an advantage. But the time is running out. You need to keep it nice and if I can speak English, nice and tidy at the minute. But I'd probably say wait until the last 1 or 2 laps and then make that move so that Dan can't come back and has no time.
Yep. Well, we will see. The gap is 0.4 of a second. We got 5 laps to go. The Confessor is down in 12th place. He's racing with Dom Smith and Magic Poop Cannon. That is not where he would have expected to have been. As meanwhile, we got Court Gill still on the attack of Mr. Chiapelli. And Mr. Chiapelli goes slightly wide and Court's off the road there, but he's going to try and send it to the inside. Somehow these two don't make contact, but the order has stayed as it is. As meanwhile, further back, we've got a great race as Kai is up the inside of Dan Morris, both on soft tyres, and they make contact. And Kai has almost ended up in the wall, and that gives a great birthday present to Jack Pearson, who moved his way up into P8.
Yeah, that was very close from Kai there. I think there was nothing in it. A bit of wheel banging, it can very easily happen. But yeah, Jack Pearson now up to P8. The Confessor is, I would sort of Confessor update for you, is down into P12. I think he'll only lose it. Has actually left then. So, but yeah, I think he's probably just rage quit at that point or something. But yeah, Magic Poop Cannon is 5 seconds behind.
Softy, look at the front. Look at the front. It's the gap is 2 tenths. Matt Tibos right on the back of Dan the Man as we head over the start-finish line. 4 laps to go. Lap number 12. Dan the Man, second in the championship, first on the road, has got Matt Tibos breathing all over his neck. Both of these former TGP1 champions, multiple TGP1 champions. Matt Tibos getting very happy on the throttle, and that could have cost him an opportunity down the main straight now, Softy.
Yeah, he needs to be this is what he doesn't need to do. Obviously, these tyres are going to be screaming any time now. He needs to be as close as he can onto this back straight. He has got a bit more ERS than Dan the Man. So if I was Matt Tibos, again, I'd save that ERS, ensure that you're close enough as possible, no mistakes, and then just gun it. Use all your ERS on this next lap or the lap after, and get past, and that's what's needed to be done. But yeah, I think that's his opportunity gone for this lap at least. But what I was going to say is, realistically, the Confessor is only going to finish the lowest of 13th, because Phil Bardwell is 20 seconds behind Magic Poop Cannon at the minute. The question is though, as the Confessor has actually left the session, I'm not too sure even if he finishes in the points, if he actually gets any points. So I'm not too sure about that. Don't quote me on it, but I'm not sure if that is a rule or not, that you've got to physically finish yourself.
Well, we shall but see. Meanwhile, it's all going off at the front here. 3.5 laps to go, and 0.3 of a second separate these two. Oh, and Matt Tibos, just as I say that, has a moment, and that could drop him out of DRS now, Softy.
It is, yeah. He's 9 tenths, 8 tenths now, but you can clearly tell he's trying. Either he's really trying, or those tyres have really had enough. But yeah, this is his best opportunity to win a race this season. One mistake, Dan might get a penalty. It's very close. But if I was Matt Tibos, save the ERS this lap because of that mistake. Use the DRS just to gain that time back. And again, just wait one more lap to get it down this main DRS straight, but half a second. So it's clear that Matt Tibos is, I think, faster than Dan the Man. It's just these mistakes are costing him opportunities to overtake.
Oh, Dan's run a bit wide though, Softy. Yeah, Dan's run wide. This is his chance. This is his chance. Matt Tibos, he's using the RS. He's using the DRS. Dan goes defensive. Round the long way. Is Matt Tibos going to be sent? He breaks later. They touch. Matt Tibos is forced off the road. He's still up the inside. And at the next corner, he's got the inside line. And he's got the lead of the race, has he? Dan the Man is fighting back, and he's got the inside for the next corner. Matt Tibos tries to switch back under, but for the moment at least, the Ferrari holds on.
Yeah, and Speed Kai's actually spun, unfortunately, from a good position, so he's now down into P11. But yeah, the battle at the front is very, very close with only, 2.5 laps to go.
Yep, 2.5 laps to go. We've got two drivers who both want this race win so much for different reasons.
Yeah, Dan was wide there, and here comes Matt Tibos. He's going to dive up the inside. I think he's going to try it. No, he thinks better of it. Dan does go defensive. That's going to allow Matt Tibos to get a bit of a better exit, but it's a bit too short, this little straight, to actually try any moves. But Dan is on 13% ERS. Matt Tibos only 8, so it's very even Stevens for that ERS deployment coming on to the penultimate lap in a moment.
And these two battling is really getting John. He's like a fish at the end of a hook, and he could be brought into this battle if these two continue squabbling as much as they have done. Still, less than half a second separate these two. No safety cars in this race, and we've got 2 laps to go. We're on the penultimate lap to decide who is going to be the winner of this fantastic Singapore Grand Prix. It's round number 13 of the season. We've got 15 cars left in this race, having had Aidan Griffins and now the Alpine teammate of the Matt Tibos, Kai, crash out of the race. But Softy, this could be Matt Tibos' opportunity. He had a go here last time round, and Dan did the defensive work he needed to, but he's close again. The Alpine within striking distance of the Ferrari, down the main straight, down towards the end of the back straight. Are we going to see a move? But no, not quite. Matt Tibos perhaps fancying a move on the final lap, is he?
Potentially, I'd say this is his only opportunity now as Dan runs a bit wide there, but Matt Tibos needs to just not use any errs on this lap until he gets on that DRS straight, because they're both under 10%. So if Matt Tibos is able to get above 10% by that DRS and Dan isn't, then it means that Matt Tibos is going to have a significant straight line speed advantage, which we've seen so much this race so far between.
Oh, Dan's wide again! Dan's wide again! Exactly. Matt Tibos is right with him as they head down the back straight. They're going over the bridge. We're crossing the river. We're crossing a moment in the race that could be decisive. Dan the man runs a bit deep. Matt Tibos is getting the switch back. They're going to be side by side. And as they head into the fast left-hander, Dan the man's done just enough to keep ahead for the moment. These two are giving it everything on the track.
They are, obviously, a very, very good opportunity there, but Matt Tibos needs to keep it tidy now, because again, that one DRS straight is really the only overtaking spot. It's probably his best overtaking spot without Dan being able to get back through, but he's pushing him around this last sector is Matt Tibos, but one more opportunity realistically, I'd say, and it's going to come down to the wire.
Yep, one more lap to go. Two drivers, one of them has taken a win this season, the other one has only had one podium. What that Matt Tibos would do for this race win, we're about to find out, because he's just got a few corners to go and not many opportunities left, arguably, perhaps only two. And here's one of them, onto the main straight now. 3/10 is the gap. He's got the DRS open, he's going to have the ERS in full deployment. Dan's surely going to go defensive. Is he going to cover the inside line? Of course he is. He's going to send Matt the long way round. Is Matt going to go the long way round? He's certainly going to try it, and he's round the outside of Dan the man, and with a beautiful overtaking manoeuvre, the Alpine on the final lap has finally taken the lead of the race, and now he can get his head down and focus on the start-finish line, because in just half a lap's time, Matt Tibos could finally take another race win in TGP1. He's waited so long for it, he's had to work hard for it. Dan the man's running wide, he's giving everything he can in that Ferrari to try and combat this Alpine coming round the final corner and taking the lead of the race and taking the race win in Singapore. But Matt Tibos has done everything he needs to do. He's been patient, he's been creative, and when Dan the man went defensive, he found a way past. He kept him within the light lines, and he's going to take the race win, surely, barring any major mistakes now. We said about Jean closing up. He's just a second behind Dan the man now, so had there been another lap, Dan could have been in real trouble. He's really had to fight for this one. It's been a really entertaining race. He's had some things handed to him on a plate. This track has got many twists and turns, and we certainly saw the narrative of this race take many turns as well. But with just two corners to go, Matt Tibos is going to end a horrible run in TGP1 and finally take a race win. He had to work for it. He had to make it happen. And Dan the man made a mistake at the end with Jean beating him to second place. The quiet assassin took his kill at the final corner to take P2 by just 0.08 of a second. Viva Lamerco came home in fourth. Dan Morris takes fifth place in what was a good evening in the end for the Williams. But Softy, I can't remember a race where I enjoyed commentating on that much. That had everything.
Especially at Singapore. Normally Singapore's a boring race, but yeah, dear God, first it was the Confessor, having his issues or whatever, and then the tyres going off for Dan at the end. But I'm not too sure what happened to Dan, to be honest, because he was about a second ahead going into that final sector, so he must have made a big mistake. But I just caught the end of it, and the Confessor down into 13th come the end of this race. So yeah, it had a lot. It had a lot of action. It had a few incidents. It had controversy. You know what? I'd probably say that is probably one of the best races this season I've had the privilege of commentating on.
I'd hands down so far, best race of the season, possibly. Well, I'd even go as far as to say maybe even the best race we've seen on F1 22 in TGP1. That was absolutely extraordinary. What a race. I mean, it was just such close racing. All through the field as well. It wasn't just what was going on for the win. Obviously, that had a huge impact on what was going on, but that just had everything. I mean, Softy, we thought last week was bloody good, but this was fantastic.
Oh, I'm just hoping that this that Monza lives up to this. Monza's a very easy circuit to overtake and stuff, so I'm hoping.
Well, we certainly enjoyed that race, and as the podium celebrations get underway, before we cut over to speak to our interviewed driver in just a few moments' time, take a bow, Matt Tibos, because that really was something, and he had to work for that. He had to wait, and boy, did he make it count in the end. And that was honestly just fantastic driving. And he was not the person I would have thought that would come away with the win of this race, but he has done. And meanwhile, someone who I didn't expect to see in P2 in this race, Jean-Luc Taylor, welcome to the commentary box, welcome to the podium. How did you do it?
Well, just obviously it was a bit helpful with Confessor having to something happened with Confessor, so he kind of had to leave, so that kind of left me in third, and I was just closing Tibos and Dan. It was just the gaps coming down, and then just last lap Dan got a bit of damage in the middle sector, so it allowed me to close up, and then he went wide and I just shot down the inside. So it's twice now he's let me through at the last corner in Singapore in TGP1, but the other one being the infamous season where he pulled over to give me the win for a championship I wasn't really in for, but yeah, I was happy with that. I wasn't expecting that result, to be honest.
Well, neither were we, to be quite honest with you. I mean, at one point, you were 5 seconds behind the two of them. Obviously, then they started battling with a few laps to go, and we said in the commentary box, you could be reeled into this one. You were reeled into it, but you didn't have very long left to go, and we said only with a few corners to go, you could have got past Dan the Man, and next thing we knew, you were past him. So what was going through your mind in the last few laps? Were you thinking you could have caught them, or was it just sort of circumstances that put you in that position?
To be honest, I thought with a few laps to go, yeah, I've taken P3. I'm kind of on my own, but they started battling. I was looking at the gap. I was going the second half a lap, and I said to myself, if I get this right, I'll be right with him at the end. And then Tibos made the move on down for the lead, and then Dan got the damage, and I was just like, right, just speed with him in the last few corners because he's going to struggle in sector 3, and then he might be a bit wide. So I kind of, coming up the penultimate corner, he was really slow where he's understeering. I was just like, if I just get this right, just position myself so when he goes wide I can shoot up the inside, and that's what I went and did.
And John, just from obviously your perspective, you mentioned a little bit about what happened with the Confessor there. We didn't quite see what went on, but it sounds like he actually did step away from the race. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. He went to AI and then he left the session a short while after, because I lost a bit of time just before my pit stop because I caught his AI, but where he was in the session and left, his AI wasn't ghosting, and I caught him in sector 3 and I had to wait. I lost about a second or two waiting to get to the straight to pass him, so I could have been a bit closer perhaps at the end, but I'll take P2. There was a moment at the start which might get looked up with Kurt and Aiden. So they've both gone wide at turn 4 at the end of the straight, and I've gone down the inside, and I don't think they've seen me, and they've made contact, and then Kurt's starting to spin round, and I tried to back off, but I just ever so slightly just nip the back of his car and he spins round. So that might get looked up, but yeah, we'll see what comes of that. But yeah, P2, very happy.
And John, what can we expect from you in Monza? We know that the Williams car can be quite good at Monza. Are we going to see you following suit?
I hope so. I'd like to say I could fluke a pole like I did a couple of seasons ago here, but there's some quick guys in here, and Monza, it's all about the start really, turn 1. It could get hectic, just got to get myself in the right spot. But we'll see what we can do. Second podium would be nicer. A win would be very lovely, but we'll see.
Well, Sean, as ever, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to look forward to seeing you on track, obviously, in just a few minutes' time. And obviously, good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Hope you both enjoy Monza.
I'm sure we will. Softy, just back to you now, quickly, if we may, before obviously we go to the race.
Of course.
What can we take away from that race? Obviously, one thing we don't fully know if the Confessor's going to be back for this race or not. So that could have huge implications. As you said, he's not yet joined back. So, how big an opportunity now is this? Obviously, I'm looking at Dan in a Ferrari at Monza, having let himself down, by the sounds of it, in Singapore in the end. This is huge for him.
It is. It is. I mean, what the Confessor had? What was it? What is his points gap? 120, 20 something. I think it was.
I think it was 126. Don't quote me on that. Carry on while I find out.
I was thinking of that as well. 126 there, but it's not the end of the world for the Confessor. I think he's still going to easily win the championship. However, it just means that he's going to have to wait a lot longer. The fact that he's not in this session as well means that potentially he may not even rejoin tonight, whatever his issue is. Obviously, we need to find out what that issue is. But this is a prime opportunity for Dan the Man to close that gap. As much as can, and not even close the gap, but I'd probably say at this point Dan's not even thinking of the title. He's probably thinking of just getting those race wins and then seeing what happens. But this is a massive opportunity for all of the drivers, really. As we saw with Matt Tibos as well. He's shown the odd bit of pace here and there. We know he's got that pace, as he showed in Singapore a moment ago. So it's just putting it together as we actually see. It's a dry qualifying then, so we'll see how the race is. But it's just a massive opportunity for all of these drivers, because especially at Monza, it's very hard to pull away, and it's very easy to keep with the cars ahead.
Well, I'm still sort of a little bit taken aback by what we've just seen. Yeah, I just can't get over how much of good a race we've just witnessed. And as you said, it's Singapore as well, of all places. I know we've seen some exciting races there in the past, but it's not a guaranteed classic there every time, is it?
It's not, no. I think what you tend to find is there's always a lot of incidents and people crashing into walls and stuff, but you tend not to get amazing battles, and I think we definitely had quite a few of those in the race just gone, along with obviously the battle for the lead as well. So it was definitely one of, I'd say, if not the best Singapore Grand Prix that I've ever watched or commentated on or even been in TGP1. But yeah, this race is going to be hard to top the excitement of that. But I think if any circuit can do it, it is Monza.
Well, we certainly will see. We've got Mr. Chiapelli doing his usual cameo, one of the first cars out on track, Alistair Bain joining him. So, Softy, what are some key things that we need to be looking out for around this circuit for this race as well? Pole time, what sort of time should we be expecting to see at the circuit at Monza?
Yeah, so, just for comparison, pole in TGP1 last season was a 19.6 by, I think, Dan the Man. So obviously he does have form around here, but yeah, 19.6 was pole. I would normally say, I think I've been wrong more this season than ever before when it comes to pole time, but I would normally expect with the Confessor here the pole time to be a low 19. I'll probably say a 19.2, a 19.3. The fact that the drivers that are in TGP1, other than the Confessor again, don't really play the game nearly as much as they normally do in the first season. I don't think it'll be much quicker, if at all, than last season. So I'm probably going to say maybe a 19.5 will be the pole time as Mr. Chiapelli starts his first lap. Key takeaways from here: the curbs very aggressive, Depending on the setup that you run, you can ride the curbs a bit more. In the first chicane, you just want to avoid them altogether. It's that second chicane you can sort of cut the inside one if your setup allows, but the right-hander within it, you want to avoid that Sosh curb at all costs. Due to low downforce, the cars are very skittish. Parabolica, you'll find probably a few drivers struggling with the rear end. Well,
we saw Chiapelli actually sort of having a bit of a drift coming around the Parabolica just as he was about to start his lap. Only a very small one, but as you said there, Softy, that's just how on a knife edge these cars are around this circuit, because the downforce is just so unnecessary. You need a slick car if you're going to have any chance of success around here. Another thing we ought to talk about, Softy, as well, is what are the chances we're going to see a bit of slipstreaming going on as we get towards the end of qualifying? Perhaps the driver number 2 sacrificing their lap for leader of the team to give them an opportunity at a better lap time. What are the sort of chances we're going to see of that a little bit?
Well, if you actually go on board with the 2 Mercedes, it's already happening. So they were discussing whether this was going to be as Mr. Chiapelli goes on a 20.7, but both the Mercedes are slipstreaming each other at the minute. Phil slipstreaming Jack Pearson. Jack Pearson, in his old age now, with it being his birthday, he needs every help he can get there.
Oh, he's spun! He's spun and he's in the wall!
There we go.
And he's out of qualifying.
Was a waste of time. That was a waste of time for Phil then, slipstreaming him. But that's just Jack Pearson things. I think he was struggling through there all in the one or two practice sessions he did yesterday. So, but yeah, the slipstream is very powerful around here. I think you may as well try it. It clearly didn't work for Jack Pearson because he didn't even make it through the lap, as John does a 20.0, which is about what he was setting in practice as well there. But yeah, I'm still saying a mid 20, a mid 19.5 should I say. Should be pole position by Dan the Man without the Confessor being here.
Well, interesting start to qualifying already. It did seem like, James just pointed out in the comments, it did seem like they got the slipstream all wrong. Jack seemed far too close to Phil as they headed towards Ascari, and maybe that put him in a position where he didn't have enough downforce coming through that chicane, as Chip Helly's just crashed out in a similar spot. So that's two cars we've lost now to the Ascari chicane. We're watching Viva Lamerco, who finished P4 at the last race in Singapore, so he certainly had a good result. Obviously, he's returning to TGP1 Softy after a long time away. And he spun. That's
and
great.
There you go. Told you the rear end's very, very squirrely through there. But you mentioned about downforce. What downforce? None of these cars have downforce around here. They may as well not run wings at all, to be honest. But yeah, a bit of a spin for Mirko there as he comes into the pits.
Yeah, and we're now seeing Matt Tibos, who is on a lap, although I don't think he's pushing too much. He sounds like he's shifted. Wet Lemons, I can't remember Wet Lemons being in the last race, but he's certainly in this race. Obviously, he was he?
He wasn't. No, he joined for this race.
I was going to say, maybe I was being blind. Well, Lemons obviously having a very successful campaign in TGP2 at the moment, so let's give it a little bit of airtime for the Haas driver. What do you think will go through his mind at the moment? Is this just sort of an exploratory mission for his TGP2 pursuits, do you think? Or is he going to be trying to finish as well as he can?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to, if you're spending sort of an hour and a half, 45 minutes of being in TGP1, you may as well try and do your best. Everything you learn today will benefit him in TGP2 tomorrow, because they are, after all, the same circuits that we go to each night for both leagues. So, he'll be using this as experience. He'll be sort of gauging himself what pace he can do. I don't know, obviously, whether he does sweat or not prior to the runs in sort of Tuesday nights, of course, and then Wednesday nights. But at the end of the day, every little helps, and you'll want to push himself as much as he can to be prepared mentally for tomorrow.
Yeah, he puts himself into P8, still with some time to be found, you would have thought. Softy, James obviously also commented saying they followed each other too closely, got too much dirty air. How do you nail the slipstream around this sort of circuit? Is that something that you've ever done in the past, and is it something you've ever been able to perfect? I mean, what is it that the drivers need to do to get that slipstream strategy working just right?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, communication, of course. End of the day, you need to figure out, right, when are you both going out? Normally, I think me and Phil have actually done it around here when we were teammates. Normally, what you end up doing, or we did, is one person will go out and do their flying lap, and one person will come out on an out lap or so at the same time, and sort of give slipstream, not around the whole lap, but the main straights and things like that. So you're not sort of getting distracted by the car ahead. But it is just a case of a bit of communication on where you both need to be, and clearly Jack was a bit too close, so it maybe didn't work out too well. But James mentioned there, Jack being a bit too close. I think in terms of your grip, it probably won't affect you too much, because there's probably no grip with the wings you're running. But it's more just a case of the car ahead distracting you by being so close. You sort of want to be 0.8 to about a second behind the car that you're getting slipstream by, just to ensure that you can focus on your lap without having to worry about them sort of getting in your way.
Certainly. Well, we've just seen Alistair Bain pop up into fourth place, so it means that we now have a Williams 1-2 and an Alfa Romeo 3-4. So interesting to watch how that develops. Just a quick one on Shane. We understand he had to be sort of called away for potentially some sort of family emergency, so we hope everything is all okay his end. Obviously, great shame to see him having to leave from the lead of the race at Singapore, and hoping everything is all okay his end. So we don't know any more than that. but nonetheless, hoping everything is fine with him. Anyway, back to the action on track. We've just seen one of the Ferraris move up into P6. Aidan Griffiths has just crashed out at Ascari as well. That's the third car we've lost to that corner now. And Dan the Man is on an outlap as well. So Matt Tibos has popped up into P5 as well during all of that, Softy. So we're seeing the time sort of ramping up a little bit. Is Monza one of those tracks where you do build a bit of rhythm, bit of momentum?
Yeah, you need to, because it's such again, we've seen 3 people at Ascari been in it, such low downforce, such little grip in the corners. You sort of need that momentum, you need that confidence to know, right, what is the car doing, where can I push, where can I not, because if you do push too quick, as we've seen with 3 drivers so far, it's very easy for the car to bite and off you go into the barriers, and there's not much runoff in a lot of areas where you probably will go off, such as Ascari. So it's you need to be careful.
Well, we've got Dom Smith on a quick lap at the moment. We haven't talked much about the Aston Martin driver, but as he's approaching towards the line at the moment, he's going to be hoping to improve on a 1 minute 21.1, and he does. He goes 6th fastest on a 1 minute 20.5. Handy lap there from the Aston Martin driver. Also worth noting as well, we haven't got Cam back for this race either. Not sure what's happened there, but another driver will be missing from this race. Phil Barger now puts himself up into P6, the sole remaining Mercedes driver, after his birthday boy teammate made a complete fool of himself just a few moments ago.
Yeah, unfortunate for Jack there. I think he was struggling a bit in the practice sessions he did with that rear end. I think Jack Pearson's issue from on board is just he's not smooth with his controller. He's a controller user after all, but yeah, he's just not as smooth as a lot of cars and a lot of drivers. But we see Dan the Man actually is currently halfway through his lap, coming into Ascari nicely, keeping the curbs well away from his floor. You want to sort of ride the curbs as much as you can, but you don't want to get the centre of the car on them, because that is where it ends up spinning you, especially at Ascari. But Dan the Man had a bit of a weave there, so I don't know if it's actually starting the lap, I believe now. I think that was his second lap potentially, I'm not sure there. But I mean, what we'll do, Mike, if you want to go on board with Dan, and I'll run you through a lap.
We'd love you to, Softy. So here we are, on board them with a Ferrari Monza.
Into turn 1, if I say about 100-metre board, you want to break down. He actually goes into first gear. I stay in third here. Short shift as much as you can on the exit. He gets a lot of oversteer because he did hit the curve a bit wrong. Keep it as far to the right as possible to give you the shortest run, and that's all you can do down this, down this curve straight really. And into this second chicane, you can either ride the curve or avoid them. I try and avoid them. He's 6 tenths up on his previous lap, so it must have been just a random, obviously nice run there. But it's actually quite good through there. Very easy to get the car squirrely. You want to turn into this right-hander earlier than you need to, because your car does wash out. It's very easy to get over there and do a Lewis Hamilton in 2009. Ride all the curve on this right-hander on the entry and the exit. DRS wide open, and here we go. You're preparing yourself mentally for Ascari. You need to know. You want to start turning it as soon as the curve starts on the right-hand side at 50 metres. He takes all the curve he can. He avoids it on the right, interesting, and avoids it on the left. You want to avoid it on the left there, because that will unsettle the car. But it is interesting that he gives a wide berth for that curve on the right-hand side going through there. But here we go, then Parabolica. I would probably say you want to brake about 60 metres, take a later apex than you need to just to get the run, short shift where you can to avoid that oversteer. He gets a bit of oversteer there, you can see him correct him and keep as far to the right as possible. As long as 2 wheels on the circuit, it counts, and it's a 19.9. He is currently 3 tenths off his TC1 pole at the minute, and Jean is still currently P1, and Dan Morris actually does a 19.9 there, so fair play to Dan Morris.
Yeah, well, we saw, just as Dan was doing his lap, Jean go in with that 19.92, and then obviously Dan goes in with the 19.97, and the other Dan goes in with a 19.94, so very close at the head of field at the moment. We've got Viva La Merco currently on a lap as well, the Red Bull driver. Are we going to see an improvement for his P5 time at the moment?
Outlaps, not using any ERS at the minute.
Okay. Interesting, Softy, this might be the second person we've seen doing the double out lap. Is there a benefit to that around here? It's Matt Tibos, there we go, man in form.
Yeah, there we go.
Provisional pole.
Yeah, I think it's more a case of potentially, I think people just making mistakes with the chicanes. They're thinking, right, I'm just going to back off, save my ERS for a second run. More than anything, I think you don't really need, on this game, you don't really need to do sort of two outlets, because when you find that you get onto your flying lap, you're probably overheating the tyres at that point. But yeah, as we said, Matt Tibos going provisional pole in 19.8, so he's finding a bit of form. It is unfortunately a bit too late on this season, and also this game, as this is the last season we will do on this game. So I think he'll be hoping for a better F1 2023 campaign. And TGP1, but yeah, and end of the day, you're only as good as your last race, and his last race he won, so he'll be hoping to keep that momentum on.
Is it just you find a bit of I don't know if it's just finding a setup or finding necessarily a little bit of confidence, or perhaps a way of doing things that Matt might have done recently, which is now putting him in this stead, do you think, or is it not as quite as deep as that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of both. I think obviously, setups is a massive one. Obviously, if you can have an esports setup, for example, and yeah, it may be the fastest setup you will ever have, but if it's undrivable to you, it's pointless, because you're just going to bin it immediately. So I think it's finding a setup that's fast, but then one that suits your driving style, that you have that confidence to push in, because if you don't have the confidence, you're not going to do well at all, and you're more likely going to crash. But I think it is also confidence in the sense of, it's easy when you're not quite at that winning level where you think you need to be. It's very easy to overdrive the car, and then you make mistakes. The pressure gets to you. So, I think the fact that it's so late on in the season, Matt Tibos knows he's not going to win the title. He knows he's not really normally in the race for wins. I don't think he's got any pressure. So I think he's probably just enjoying these circuits a bit more than what he would, when he's trying harder.
Yeah, well, we were just watching his teammate there going around for a lap, and it was saying he was doing some very quick times in the first two sectors, but he has decided to come into the pits, put a new set of softs on, and go out again. Who are we going to see then first out on the road? It's a Ferrari, but it's not down. It's Court, who's going to be the first one then to start his final laps. So it's quite tight at the top. We've got the top four separated by less than a tenth of a second. 2 tenths then back to Aiden in fifth, who has retired, so isn't going to be going any quicker. But Softy, tell me, 2 minutes to go, who's going to be on pole?
Oh, that is the question. It's very hard to tell round here because it is so close, and you sort of hope it's close with how little corners there are. But I've got to say, Dan or Matt Tibos. I think without the Confessor and obviously without Jack Hickey, you would normally say that those two are the ones that should have the pace over the rest. Again, it's easy to say that from the outside, though. I think Dan does have a bit more time that he can gain from being a bit more aggressive on the curbs. But I think Dan can definitely go. Well, I mean, we know he can do a 19.6 with I think his pole from last season. So Dan can definitely go faster. I think Matt Tibos maybe is on his limit, I would say. But yeah, it's anyone's guess.
And what do we think we're going to see from Jean? Jean obviously was for a long time the pace setter. Can we see an improvement from the man from Harlow?
Yesterday Jean did one session, a few laps. He did a 20.1. It's hard to really base anything off that. I would say he's probably near his limit. But again, he did get a surprise pole a few seasons ago round here. When it was me and Matt Tibos potentially fighting for the pole position, and he robbed pole offers, and it was a great fight between I think about four different drivers. So anything's possible if he gets a car ahead, which he does have at the minute, of Dan the man. He's in a prime position to potentially get a bit of slipstream, although he did get a bit of go very slow through that final corner. So he's in a prime position, let's say Jean is, to get a slipstream.
Well, let's find out. It's going to be Dan Morris, who's actually the first of our top four, who's going to come around to set a lap. Then it's going to be Dan the man, then Jean, and then Matt. So Matt is going to be the last of the top four runners to set a qualifying time. And Dan Morris, yeah, almost 2 temps up, Softy. Oh, no, Dan, no.
And Dan the man is 2 tenths up on his lap time.
Oh, Dan, one of the Dans anyway. The other Dan is still going for it, but Dan Morris has thrown away his opportunity. Court Gill down in 13th. He won't be impressed with that one. But Dan the man then, with it all to do.
He is. Dan the Man is a 2 temps up going into that middle sector, though, so we'll see how he does coming into Ascari, as Dom has retired there. You'd think he'd be finding more time, 2.5 temps then, so he is doing what he needs to, and here we go. It will be, I'll probably say it again, there's a recall right there. That is terrifying. You are lucky that ghosting is on, but yeah, Dan finding 2 and a bit temps there on his current lap, so I'd probably say that will be, what, a 19.6, 19.7, so around what I said it'll be, so I'll take that as a win. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, but Jean-Luc Taylor is probably what the first. Actually, no, it is Dan the Man. I'm talking rubbish there. And here we go. It's 19.5, so I was bang on. I am awesome. And John goes at 19.7. And what is Matt Tibos? Matt Tibos,
he's not improving.
Apparently, he's 2 temps down. No, so that is it then for what is potentially the fight for the pole position. But Viva La Mirko is coming around the last corner. And what is he going to do? He's currently on a 20.2. Is he going to improve? I think he will do. And it's a 20.0, so he moves up to 5th.
Yeah, good stuff there from Viva La Mirko. I hate to say it, Softy, but you were right. Phil Bargewell now across the line.
I'm always right.
Goes 7th. Well, what an interesting session. Dan the Man doing what he had to do, but he left it very late. As you said, Softy, just took a little bit more liberty with the curbs in the end, which put him in the position he needed to, which is pole position. It's a W for Dan, but there's still the race to come. Dan the Man then, it's going to be your pole sitter, and he's joined on the front row by Jean. The start's so important in this race, as Jean said to us in his interview a little bit earlier on. We then got Matt Tibos, our race winner last time out, in 3rd. Dan Morris up in 4th place. Viva La Mirko will be starting from 5th with Alistair Bain in P6. Phil Bargewell is 7th with Aidan Griffiths in 8th. Wet Lemons is 9th with Magic Poop Cannon rounding out the top 10. Dom Smith will be 11th with VRT Jordan in 12th. Court Gill is 13th, Mr. Chiapelli 14th, Speed Kai in 15th, and Jack Pearson, our birthday boy, is going to be starting from the back. Well, so Softy, what do we need to be looking out for the race ahead? What do we need to be keeping an eye on? And who, more importantly, do we need to be keeping an eye on, and the strategies that can go with that?
Well, I'd probably say the top 4, to be honest. They all seem very close on pace, really. But yeah, I think it's just important, just at the minute, just to pick the right tyres. I think a lot of people will go on the mediums. I think Dan the Man probably will. You know, there's no harm in it, really. But one thing I would like to quickly say as well before we get into the races, that was Dan's 88th pole position. And it pains me to say it because I want to try and close up on the record of poles, and Dan's getting his poles and it's getting further away. So Dan, please stop it. I would much appreciate that. But I'm actually looking at the minute. Viva La Mirko is currently on the mediums. Aidan Griffin's Wet Lemons on the mediums. ERT Jordan Court, whereas everyone else near the front is currently on those softs. Dan Morris on the mediums. Is Dan the Man going to start on those softs? And I think the top 3 are starting on those soft tyres, so it is going to be very interesting to see the strategies play out.
Yeah, well, we've got 5 lights in the legendary circuit of Monza, and they're underway, and we're underway, and Matt Tibos has had a good start from 3rd place. Dan the Man has had a great start. It's Jean who hasn't got away particularly well, and he's having to go defensive. Matt Tibos already into 2nd place and already covering off Jean, and we got round the outside, Viva La Mirko going to attacking. He's been spun. The Red Bull is round, and he's reversing in the track, and there's all sorts of chaos going on further ahead. Phil Bargewell's up to 4th. Dan Morris has dropped down to 5th. Jean didn't get the start he wanted there. I couldn't see who attacked him. Oh, we got a big crash. And a big crash in the background. Wet Lemons is in the barrier, and I think he was joined by Magic Poop Cannon, and that all kicked off behind the leading trio. And well, the race has settled down now slightly. Dom Smith is up to 7th place. We've got cars everywhere at the start of the race. Court Gill now going defensive from Jack Pearson, who's made up a few places as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure who was it that tagged Viva La Mirko in turn 1, but he was trying to go around the outside, and I think just unfortunately 10 into 1 does not go, sadly, with that. But Aidan Griffin's right behind Dom Smith and actually overtaking him quite easily for P7 there. So Dom Smith now losing another place, but it'll be interesting to see who's got damage. But yeah, very unfortunate for Wet Lemons.
Oh, we got a car in the roll!
Oh, we've got Aidan Griffin's, or is it Alistair?
It's Alistair. Alistair's.
Yep, Alistair's spun there.
Yeah, and he's lost his front wing, so that's going to be a trip to the pits for the Alfa Romeo in their home race. Phil Bargewell's now all over the back of Jean. We thought Jean could be a menace for the lead here, and Jean at the moment is only going backwards. And now he's got Phil Bargewell all over his barge pods, all over his rear ring, as Dan the Man is stretching his lead out to front to over a second, and Jean is now looking potentially to go on the attack from Matt Tibos. Are we going to see a late move from any of these guys? No, we're not. And a little bit further back, we've got Chiapelli battling with the RT Jordan. We've got Kai battling with Court, and Kai trying to go the long way around of the Ferrari there.
Phil as well, trying to go around the outside of Curva Grande on Jean there, but Jean, I think, using a bit of his or has got a bit better straight line speed than Phil. But it's going to be interesting to see who's running more or less downforce, because I think quite a lot of people will be running 0-0 for maximum impact.
Yeah, as we said, it's all about the slipstream here. It's all about the low downforce. It's all about the top speed. At the end of the day, it's all about winning this race, and Dan the Man is doing everything he can to put himself in that position at the moment. He needed a perfect night. He's not going to have a perfect night, but he could have a very good night. A third place and a first place would go down a treat for the man who started off the night 124 points behind the Confessor, who potentially might be scoring nothing.
Yeah, very unfortunate for the Confessor there. Obviously, hopefully everything is okay, as you mentioned, but Dan the Man's got to take it when he can, and he's currently just under a second ahead of Matt Tibos. But Dan the Man does have a bit more ERS. He's using a bit of his ERS on this main straight, but yeah, they are sort of roughly even on ERS now with that, as Dan does set the fastest lap, but it seems a bit spaced out at the front at the moment with the top 5, as Speed Kai is getting ahead of Court, and Ioti Jordan is getting ahead of Mr. Chiapelli around the outside going into turn 1 there, so that is looking very close between the sister teams.
Oh, Chiapelli very late on the brakes, and he just about gets to stop. Not quite sure how. Jordan's going to have to go on the long way. Chiapelli almost pushes them on the grass, but the Red Bull driver sticking with the AlphaTauri at the moment. These two, both formerly in TGP2, great to see them racing well in TGP1 for 8th place. Chiapelli goes defensive, and for the moment at least, hangs on to 8th place. Dom Smith's having a good race up in 7th place. I know we mentioned him a little while ago, but he's having a good one as Court now, putting pressure on Jordan after a little mistake out of the chicane.
Yeah, obviously you'd expect Court to be a lot higher than what he is, to be honest. As we see, actually, Ioti Jordan get very out of shape there. So this should be an easier move for Court, depending on downforce levels. But you've got to be brave to go up the inside. Obviously scoring, he is going to the inside then. So is he going to hold it? And Ioti Jordan sort of doesn't really fight too much. And a bit of side-by-side action there as Speed Kai is obviously thinking about going up the inside as well of the Red Bull there. But yeah, unfortunate for Ioti Jordan there. He's about to lose another place.
Yep, he drops potentially down behind Kai as well. He's got the inside for the Paragolica. Kai does get round the outside. But Softy, look a bit further ahead. We've got Phil Bard. What?
Jack Pearson getting a bit out of shape there but Speed Kai is dropped behind Ioti Jordan again there.
And here comes Viva La Mirko. Look, Mirko on the recovery drive, down the inside of Kai. Kai's very late on the brakes. This could be a collision, and it is. And he sends himself spinning round, and Jordan's lost a bit of time and positions to his teammate, and now potentially to Jack Pearson. And Jack Pearson, the birthday boy, does now move up into 11th place at Jordan's expense, and that was because Kai got a little bit greedy on the brakes.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprised me if Kai sort of probably quits now, as that is something he does tend to do, unfortunately, or probably pits.
But Softy, look at third. Look at third. Phil Bargewell, 2.5 tenths behind Jean.
Yeah, I think he probably will try and go up the inside here, but Jean does go a bit defensive there. So Phil's probably going to have to go around the long way, but he's got such straight line speed that Jean just backs out of it. So, nice, tidy, smart driving from these two.
Interestingly, they're both on the soft. Oh! And Dan Morris is round! Dan Morris has had a spin, and the Williams driver is sent tumbling down the order as his chances of a podium go with it. As we see him just rejoining at the back there, he's going to be around Mirko, Jack Pearson, Jordan. So disaster for him as Kai picks up a 3-second penalty now as well. Disaster for him. It looked so good at one point, but not now. Matt Tibos, so Softy, starting to reel in Dan the Man. Did Dan take too much out of his tyres too soon?
I mean, maybe potentially. I think that the tyre is not too bad around here because there's not that many fast corners. But the gap is around 8 to a second, 8 tenths to a second there. Dan is got slightly more ERS, 63% to Matt Tibos's 46%. But yeah, as long as you can keep in that slipstream and so on, the race is potentially able to come to you. But it'll be interesting to see who pits first. I reckon Matt Tibos probably will pit first to try and get that undercut, and I think the undercut is usually quite good round here, but you want to be careful of getting into traffic, as he does have that DRS open.
Yeah, Matt Tibos then within a second of Dan the Man, and Phil Bargewell was gaining on these two slightly as well. The gap very briefly dropped to under a second before the DRS was opened. So these front four now with a best part of a 4-second buffer over Aiden, who himself has got a 3.5-second buffer over Dom Smith. So it's all happening.
It is, yeah. Aiden is the first one on the medium, so basically it's just the top 4 that are on the soft tyres at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see if like the likes of Aiden can do anything. As we've got a yellow flag, as I assume that's going to be speed
Kai
again. Yes, it is. Yeah, he's probably going to do something soon.
It's John Pitts. John's in the pits.
There we go. So John is the one trying that undercut. Then he is going to go on those medium tyres. He should come out. Well, he is going to come out in quite a good pocket of air there. So that's worked out well for John. But you know, fair play. You know, you've got to be aggressive sometimes in order to get those rewards and you know, and get into a better position. So that he may jump ahead back of Phil in that. But yeah, you know, Phil is only 8 tenths behind Matt Tibos now. So Phil is really on the charge.
Yeah, Phil's really going for it, so good to see. Matt Tibos now just over half a second behind Dan the Man. Matt Tibos going for the double. And as you said, Phil Bardwell going with him. So great stuff for the top 3 at the moment. Really good pace. Jean came out of the pit in P12. He's, as you said, Softy, he is in a nice little pocket of space. So he has got a bit of track to put the hammer down, but that's a long way to take those medium tyres, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I think it's possible. You know, normally you want to pit maybe 1 or 2 laps before what the pit window says, you know, just to try that undercut and maximise it. But again, you know,
Matt Tibos is wide! Sorry there, Softy.
Okay, there we go. No, that's fine. Dan the Man's in then. So Matt Tibos is trying to go for the overcut.
Yep, Dan the Man and Phil Bardwell in the pits. So let's keep an eye on John. John is just coming down towards the Parabolica at the moment. Dan's going to get serviced first. We've only got Dan Morris coming to the pits. He's picked up a 5-second penalty himself there. Dan and Phil being let go at the moment. John's just come around the Parabolica. So as we look down the start-finish straight, Dan's out of the pits now, as is Phil. John just coming across the start-finish line now. He's behind both of them.
Yeah,
I'd say by quite a way.
A bit more time. Yeah, I think he's actually lost a bit more time, to be honest. But I'd say the man on the move was definitely Phil Bardwell. I think John was definitely dropping off in terms of pace. But yeah, he's definitely dropped off a bit more than I think what he would hope for when it comes to the pit stops. But yeah, he's you know, and he's going to be on a slightly more warm tyres come the end.
Pressure's on Matt Tibos now, so he knows what he needs to do. Phil lost a bit of time to Dan there as well over the pit stops, it must be said. So Phil's going to want to get his head down. Jean is within a second of Phil, so is going to get the benefit of DRS, even if it is just for a lap or 2 while Phil's bringing his tyres into temperature. But Dan the Man, Softy, poised to take a win in Monza in a Ferrari in front of the Tifosi.
Yeah, you never know. Obviously, I think they did win. What was it? Did they win last season? I think Dan won last season here. Potentially, I can't actually quite remember. But yeah, Dan is in that prime seat. Obviously, you know, he was leading the race before the pit stop. So obviously, Matt Tibos is staying out by the looks of it, as we see Aiden Griffins and Dom Smith in the pits. But yeah, Matt Tibos is trying something different then. Obviously, he's clearly very happy with those tyres, but I'd probably say he's going to come in this lap. And actually, he's on less than 10% ERS. So, you know, he may as well have just pitted, because he's going to be losing quite a lot of time down these straights, and there's nothing he'll be able to do about it. So, he's hit the wall! Matt Tibos has just hit the wall and lost half of his wing on the exit of that second chicane. So that's Matt Tibos' race well and truly done for the race win. So it's going to be down to Dan, Phil and Jean for this race win. So yeah, it gets from decent to bad for Matt Tibos.
Oh yeah, disaster for the Alpine driver. Hero in the last race with his last lap antics, but on lap 8, he's let himself down. One thing that should be said as well is finally my curse of commentating on Matt Tibos and never winning a race has come to an end. So that's notable for him, I'm sure.
Jordan thinking about Chiapelli.
Yeah, well, take 2 or 3 or whatever take this is now. As you said, it's Red Bull versus AlphaTauri, and Softy, if now the sort of stops are coming into play, how important is it, like we've just seen obviously with Matt there, to just keep it on the black stuff and keep it pointing in the right direction, not putting too much strain on the tyres early after the stops, as Chiapelli and Jordan come into the pits? We're going to have a race in the stops. How important is it in those early few laps to keep those tyres in a good window?
Absolutely, it's very important. Again, you want to try and run the lines that you want, not do too many aggressive moves, wear the tyres out and so on. But when it comes to the pit stop, I think this one is, you do tend to get a bit more field spread when it comes to the pit stops around here, just because the sort of nature of the circuit. But it's very easy, as we saw. Jean was down in P12 when he made his pit stop. You always think, oh, how am I down in P12? What's going on? But it's just because it's the nature of the circuit there. But yeah, it's always important just to keep it clean, keep it tidy. Matt Tibos clearly was pushing very hard on those worn tyres. Got a bit of oversteer and off into the barrier he went. So unfortunately, that he can only blame himself for that.
Yeah, he's come out in what I believe is going to be a net P5. And look at this softy. So, and on the soft tyres, Phil was closing in on Dan at a rapid rate of knots, and Jean was dropping off. And now it's the opposite. Jean is in his element, and Phil's not got the pace.
Yeah, obviously a lot of it depends on your setup that you're running. I think when you run the medium and hards, you can run higher tyre pressures because obviously they don't overheat as much anyway. You get more grip from that and so on. So you can always do that if you do want to go on those medium and hard tyres. But yeah, setup and driving style, the mediums are always one that's a bit more of a stable, as we see Viva La Merco pit in there. But yeah, the mediums are always more of a more stable tyre. But obviously they don't give you quite the exact grip as you see John looking on the inside, but nowhere near close enough. But yeah, Phil Bardwell 2.4 seconds behind Dan, so he has lost quite a lot of time in the pit stops and these last few laps.
Yep, Dan the man doing everything he needs to at the moment to try and come away with the win of this race after he was, and I quote, embarrassed in Singapore. So very disappointing for the Ferrari driver there. Viva La Merco has come into the pits and rejoined.
Phil spun!
Oh my goodness. Has he lost his front wing? Yes, he has. There's no front wing on that wagon.
He hit the curb, spun it straight into the barrier, basically a Mika Hakkinen.
Goodness me, Phil Bardwell. He was running in such a solid P2, and now he's got to do pretty much a whole lap with no front wing. He pulls over to let Dan Morris through, but there's going to be a seething, angry Middlesbrough face behind that helmet, and Phil's going to feel like a bit of a helmet at the moment, Softy. That was just such a rookie error.
It is. I mean, to be honest, it can. Unfortunately, when it comes to the curbs on this game, it can happen to the best of us. Sometimes you can ride the curb and it will let you. Other times you'll ride the curb and it will spit you out like it did for Phil there. But I definitely reckon he probably rode that curb a bit too much, unsettled the car, and off he went, sort of thing. But yeah, I think very frustrating for Phil there. I think that is something we've seen this season quite a few times. Him making mistakes, but I think that's probably his old age. I think Phil Bardwell is the oldest man in TGP at 125 years old. So
I've seen
his decision making is. Yeah, his decision making is clearly not as it once was all those years ago back in the, the Victorian
in the heyday.
Times. So, exactly. So, but I'm sure he'll get there eventually.
Is Phil staying out?
Technology catches up. He has. I think he's just stayed out because he thinks, well, there's only a few laps to go. You're probably going to lose more time, sort of pitting and stuff like that. So,
well, it's going to leave us with quite the battle for sixth, isn't it? I mean, look at this. We had quite an interesting battle as well between Court, Dom, and Mirko. But this is just going to bunch all of these guys up. This is incredible stuff.
It is. I think he's going to be hard to overtake in a straight line because he's got no wing to sort of slow him down for, but he's going to be very slow in the corners, although I say that, he did that corner much better than Court behind him, to be honest. So,
look at Mirko on Dom.
He is. He's thinking about it. He's very close, but they've both got DRS on. The car's head of speed car gets a penalty there. But yeah, this little battle, I think Phil Bardwell could have an impact here as Court getting right behind him. But yeah, I think it'll be over soon for Phil Bardwell, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've seen him make one mistake already. It can happen twice. When it's not your day, it's not your day. But we're going to be in for quite a thrilling end to this race, or at least in the battle for P6. Look how slow he is around the Parabolica, Softy. He's really struggling now.
He is, yeah, and here we go then. Caught around the outside, nice and easy. DRS ERS deployed, but it's going to be a case of, is Phil going to be able to get it stopped behind, as we see Dom Smith having to think about it on Phil, and Phil's actually doing quite well with no wing, to say the least, although if you're running 0-0 wings, it probably won't actually have much of an effect at all. But here we go, Viva La Merco thinking about it, is getting a bit of a slipstream, but I don't think he's going to be quite close enough, and Phil Bardwell isn't exactly slow with no wing, which is quite surprising.
Yeah, well, I think he's doing he's doing a creditable job. He's still within DRS of Court. A hell of a job there from the man from Borough. Worth pointing out, a vast number of the drivers taking part tonight are also going to be taking part in Season 10 of TGP Dirt, which is returning over the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye on the TGP Series account for that. Everyone, we've got obviously a former TGP Dirt champion in the commentary box with us tonight, and someone who can barely score a point. I'll leave you to work out who's who, but let's put it this way, Softy is hoping that he can get on the points board quite soon. Phil Bargewell has given up the ghost with Dom Smith and let Mirko through as well, and it looks like Jordan's going to get past as well. And Phil, as we move on to the last lap, we've barely spoken about Dan for a little while. The battle's still going on. Phil Bargewell still with the DRS. He's got an incredible top speed. Look at the gains he's making on that Aston Martin. He's early on the brakes, though. He's noticed that this battle as Mirko gets very close.
Yeah, that unfortunate for Mirko there. I don't think they did make contact. However, he did sort of have to take slight avoiding action on the car ahead to avoid that contact. So fair play to Mirko doing that, but yeah, unfortunately that has meant he's dropped down to P10.
Yeah, shame for him. It was looking like a very strong race. Phil Bargewell still just about holding on to 8th place ahead of Jordan. That battle is going to rage on, but meanwhile one that isn't raging on is the battle for the lead. And he put out the pole position lap that he needed, and we all knew he had in him. He was embarrassed at the end of Singapore, as we said just a few laps ago, but he's not going to be embarrassed after this one. A controlled and mature drive from Dan the Man, who rounds the Parabolica for one more time. And it's going to be yet another race win in TGP1 for the Ferrari driver. He's weaving as he gets towards the line. The Tifosi are going to be in raptures. Italy will be in raptures. Dan the Man takes it's just his second race win of the season in the Ferrari. Jean is going to come home in second place. Aidan Griffins makes it to third. Matt Tibos recovered after his spin to finish P4. Dan Morris is on the road going to finish fifth, but drops to sixth after his penalty is applied. Dom Smith then ends up in sixth, actually. Even he beats Dan Morris by 0.3 of a second. Jordan comes home in eighth with Mirko ninth. Phil Bargewell, what could have been for him, crosses the line 10th. Birthday boy Jack Pearson on his 30th birthday ends up in P11. Mr. Chiapelli is going to come across the line in P12. I don't think he's got a front wing either, actually, looking at it. And Magic Poop Cannon, has he run out of fuel? Or is he just
no, I think
showboating?
He's just slowing, yeah. He's showboating by finishing. So,
well, there we go. Softy, it wasn't quite Singapore, but still a very entertaining race with a lot of things packed in there, which is quite interesting as the season progresses, I think. But Dan the Man, he got the job done that he needed to be done.
Yeah, no, fair play. Dan did all he needed to do. Obviously, he had a bit of a close encounter, before the pit stops, but he managed to pull out that gap. And actually, the pits round here, and a lot of times you end up gaining a bit of time on the car behind when you come out of the pits ahead of them, because obviously they're still waiting for the acceleration to get out of the pits there. But yeah, Dan did all he needed to do. Obviously, he's doing everything he can to try and keep this championship alive for a bit longer. Obviously, with the Confessor not really doing anything tonight, sadly. But yeah, fair play to the man himself.
Well, there he is, and Dan the Man does now join us. It's quite interesting. He's joining us in the commentary box while on the podium doing, I guess, a dance. Don't know if it was dancing or not. Don't know where he went dancing lessons, but nonetheless, there was something performed on the podium. But Dan, after the disappointment of Singapore, that looked relatively straightforward. But was it from your side?
No, it wasn't. But I was so disappointed after Singapore. Like, really, probably the most annoyed I've been in a TGP race for quite a while, to be honest, even more than the crash in Monaco. But so yeah, I really wanted to win this. But yeah, it wasn't easy because Tibos was flying, and even in qualifying as well, I made so many errors. That last lap, I don't really know how I managed it, but yeah, Tibos was right there, wasn't he? And then I don't really know what happened when I pitted and suddenly he was way back. I'm still trying to find out what happened, but after that, then it was sort of okay. But yeah, I'm glad to win that though.
Well, obviously, it was really good to see how you were able to perform in that race after you said what was a disappointing Singapore round. Just to focus on Italy just for now, obviously what we've just seen, Matt looked like he was very quick on the soft tyres to begin with, and then didn't really have the pace to match on the mediums, and obviously had the spin while staying out longer as well.
Oh, he spun.
He did. He spun and hit the wall and lost his front wing, which is why he dropped so much.
Oh,
but
right, okay.
do you think you would have had him covered?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, it's really, really difficult to tell. It's a shame, really, that happened because it would have been interesting to find out. But I've wondered. I was going to pit a couple laps earlier, and then I wasn't sure. And then I seen that John pitted and seen that he actually came out quite a fair way behind the others who were on medium. So I thought, best to pit on that next lap. And then I thought Tibos would come in the lap after, but he didn't, and he stayed out. And then obviously I didn't know about the spin, but yeah, it's a shame because I think it could have been a good fight maybe between us again.
Well, we certainly enjoyed watching it. What does this mean now for your championship challenge looking ahead? You've picked up 40 points tonight, so that gap from Shane has come down from 124 to 84. Do you still think this is on?
I doubt it, highly doubt it. But yeah, I'm not sure what happened with Shane. He just he had to take a phone call or something halfway through the Singapore race, and then he just disappeared. So I hope everyone's all right and all that with him and everything. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be back next week and he'll be right there at the top again. And tonight was just a nice win, I suppose, in Monza, and it's really frustrating finding a couple of laps in Singapore. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be back next week and he'll be right at the top as usual. But I'm happy to get the win in Monza.
Well, we certainly enjoyed watching you tonight. Very good racing. Thank you very much for joining us as well, Dan. And obviously we'll see you next week for another round of TGP1. So thank you very much for joining us once again. So Softy, well, what do I say? Sum this one up for us. I mean, obviously huge championship implications, what we've seen tonight. But just obviously in a few words, just tell us what you think we should be looking forward to next week.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Dan the Man sort of showing that he's got the pace and stuff like that. A bit inconsistent at times, however, what we need to consider as well is obviously whatever the situation with the Confessor is. Obviously, again, we don't know what the reasons was of him not racing and sort of pulling out midway through Singapore. But if he doesn't make it next week, then it could be very juicy towards the end of this season. It could actually be potentially a close fight in terms of points, and potentially if he misses another week as well. So obviously hopefully that's not the case, but the Confessor 100% deserves this championship. But it's going to be interesting. It is going to be interesting. Obviously we've seen that Matt Tibos has found some form. Obviously we've seen that Dan has still got that form. He just needs to try and keep that momentum up, which he doesn't always do from race to race. So it's going to be very interesting. Hopefully some close battles as well.
Well, we'll certainly look forward to that. Yeah, well, I can't get over what fantastic race Singapore was. But anyway, looking ahead then, next week we're travelling to Eastern Europe. We're going to Austria and we're going to Hungary. And we're very much looking forward to seeing you then. The title could be clinched next week. It's the same circumstances next week for Shane as what he had to do this week. Obviously, slightly altered perhaps, but nonetheless, still perhaps odds not entirely in his favour in the grand scheme of things. But anyway, we'll look forward to that then. For now, at least, he's been the Soft Cop. I've been Mike Noon. It's been a TGP Series production, and we'll see you next week, and we'll see you on PS4.